I had been babysitting for years, enough to know that every family had their own rules. Some were strict about screen time. Some had a list of emergency contacts longer than my grocery list. Some insisted their kids only eat organic, gluten-free, sugar-free snacks. But the Petersons, they had only one rule. Never open the basement door. Mrs. Peterson said it so casually, like it wasn't weird at all. She smiled as she grabbed her purse, adjusting the coat over her shoulder. We had issues with the basement before we moved in. It's locked anyway, but just in case you hear anything, ignore it. Mr. Peterson nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. He looked a little uneasy, but maybe that was just the late hour. "We'll be back by midnight," he said, and with that they left. It was an easy job. The Petersons' daughter, Lily, was 6, a quiet, well-behaved kid. After a quick dinner, we colored for a while, then I let her watch cartoons until bedtime. By 9, she was tucked in, snuggled under her blankets, breathing softly. I went back downstairs, settled onto the couch, and scrolled through my phone. It should have been a normal night. It wasn't. At first, I thought I was imagining it. A faint sound, muffled, coming from somewhere downstairs. I paused, listening. A child crying. Lily. I checked the baby monitor. She was fast asleep, but the crying continued. It wasn't coming from upstairs, it was coming from the basement. I hesitated, Mrs. Peterson's words echoing in my mind. Never open the basement door. But the crying wasn't stopping. It wasn't a trick of my ears. It was real, soft, distant, a quiet, shuddering sob from beneath my feet. I crept toward the basement door. It looked normal, plain white, a simple silver knob, locked. I knocked lightly. The crying stopped. I waited, holding my breath. Then, a soft thump. Something pressed against the door. I staggered back, my pulse quickening. Another thump. And then, a voice, childlike. "Please let me out." I ran upstairs and picked up the phone. My hands shook as I dialed. The moment the line connected, I whispered, "There's someone in the basement." The dispatcher kept calm, asking me for the address, if I was alone, if I had a way to get out. Then she said, "Stay on the line. Officers are on their way." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. And then, from the basement door, I clamped my hand over my mouth. The knocking came again, louder. The door handle rattled. And then that voice, "Please, let me out. It's dark in here." It was a child's voice, small, fragile. I wanted to believe it was a prank, that the Petersons were testing me, but there was no way a child had been locked down there. The police arrived within minutes, 2 officers. One asked me questions while the other inspected the house. "Are you sure you heard a child? Did you actually see anything?" I could barely answer. And then, "The basement door is unlocked," the second officer called out. We all froze. My stomach twisted. "No, it was locked before." The officer pulled the door open. A staircase led down into pure blackness. The air that rushed up smelled wrong, stale, old, like something that hadn't been disturbed in a long, long time. One officer went down. The other stayed with me. A few minutes passed. Then, "Chief, you need to see this." The second officer gave me a glance. "Stay here." I didn't move. I barely breathed. And then from the basement. "What the hell?" The officer came back up, face pale. He looked at me carefully like I was about to break. "You need to call the homeowners." My throat was dry. "Why?" The other officer followed, carrying something wrapped in cloth. I caught a glimpse of what was inside before I could stop myself. A small, faded pink dress, worn-out fabric, stained with something dark. "Old and dry," the officer said. "We need to ask them some questions." The Petersons arrived within 20 minutes. Mrs. Peterson looked like she'd been crying. Mr. Peterson looked worse. They barely spoke, just stood there as the officers explained what they found. Old children's clothing, one officer said. A few small toys, some other things. Mrs. Peterson sank into a chair. Mr. Peterson ran a hand down his face. It was years ago, he whispered. The room went still. Mrs. Peterson closed her eyes. We thought it was just noises, the house settling. We never checked. The officer's expression darkened. You didn't know? Mr. Peterson shook his head. When we moved in, the realtor said there was a sealed room down there. We didn't ask questions. We didn't want to know. Then, who lived here before you? Neither of them answered, but the look on their faces said it all. The police searched the basement thoroughly. They didn't find a body, just old forgotten things. Things that shouldn't have been there. Things that smelled of dust and time and something I couldn't name. They sealed the door, told the Petersons to get the house inspected. And me, I left. I never babysat for them again. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear it. That soft, small voice. Please let me out. It was supposed to be a normal babysitting job. Friday night, quiet neighborhood, 2 kids. I'd babysat for the Millers a couple of times before. Nice couple, polite kids. House was a little too quiet for my taste. Big windows, long hallways, lights that flickered once in a while, but nothing weird ever happened. They were going to some work dinner downtown, wouldn't be back until midnight. Told me to help myself to snacks, keep the kids on their bedtime schedule, and call if I needed anything. The kids, Eli, 6, and Mia, 4, were already in their pajamas, half asleep in front of the TV when I got there. By 9, they were tucked in. By 10, the house was silent. I was scrolling through my phone on the couch when I heard the front door handle turn. Then 2 soft knocks. I froze. The Millers weren't supposed to be back for at least another 2 hours. I didn't move, just listened. Another knock, a little louder. I walked slowly to the door and peeked through the peephole. A man and a woman were standing on the porch. They looked normal, both in their mid-30s, maybe early 40s. The man wore a black jacket. The woman had on a blue scarf and held a purse close to her chest. They weren't smiling, just standing still like they were waiting for me to hurry up. I opened the door halfway and kept the latch on. "Hi," the woman said. Her voice was soft. "We're back. Sorry we're early." Something felt off right away. She didn't greet me by name, didn't ask how the kids were, just stood there, waiting. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 10:14 p.m. "You're back early," I said. "We got done sooner than expected," the man said. Traffic wasn't bad. He reached into his coat pocket slowly, like he was about to take out his keys. But he didn't, just stood there, waiting. I faked a nervous laugh. "Oh, sorry. I can't find the keys. Let me grab them. Just a sec." I closed the door gently and locked it. Turned off the hallway light. Walked quickly to the living room. My phone was charging on the coffee table. I picked it up and dialed Mrs. Miller's number with shaking hands. It rang twice. Then she answered. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked cheerfully, loud music in the background. I glanced toward the front door. Still locked, still quiet. "Are you home?" "No, we just sat down. Won't be back for another hour at least." "Why?" "There's a couple at the door. They said they were you." "Don't open the door," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. I felt a chill go up my back. I stepped away from the front of the house, turned off more lights. "They said they were you and Mr. Miller. They knew you weren't home, didn't they? Listen carefully, she said. We've been getting strange calls at work. People asking about our kids, asking weird questions. My husband filed a report, but we didn't think... Someone knocked again, louder this time. They're still out there, I whispered. Take the kids, go upstairs, lock the bedroom door. We're calling the police right now. I grabbed my phone and ran to the kids' rooms. They were both asleep. I woke them gently, whispered that we were playing a game. Something about hide and seek. No noise, no lights. I carried Mia, held Eli's hand. We crept upstairs and locked the master bedroom door behind us. There were no windows facing the street from up there. Just silence, until we heard the sound of the front door handle again. This time it wasn't gentle. It jiggled, then shook, then banged. Eli looked up at me, scared. I put a finger to my lips. Then it stopped. No voices, no footsteps, just a sound like keys scraping metal. A minute later, the door creaked open. They got in. I pressed my phone to my ear and whispered to Mrs. Miller what I heard. There's a spare key hidden under the porch flower pot. We thought no one knew. I covered the kids with a blanket and tucked them into the closet. Quiet as possible. Then I stood by the bedroom door and waited. No footsteps came up the stairs, but I heard them moving through the house, opening doors, checking rooms. One of them whistled, a low, tuneless hum that made my stomach twist. Then nothing. For 10 minutes, everything was quiet again. Then a soft knock on the bedroom door. Not loud, not rushed, just gentle. Then the man's voice, "We know you're in there." I didn't move. "We just want to say goodnight to the kids." He didn't sound angry. The handle twisted. The lock held. Then silence again. I stood frozen for what felt like an hour. Finally, flashing lights lit up the windows below. Sirens. 2 sets of footsteps ran out the front door and vanished. The police never found them. The man and woman didn't match any known descriptions. No fingerprints. No prints at all, actually. And that spare key under the flower pot. It was still there, right where the Millers left it. We never found out how they got in, or why they came. But here's what really kept me up for nights after. The police showed me the security footage from the neighbor's Ring camera. It caught the 2 of them walking up the Miller's driveway around 10:12 p.m. What the camera also saw, just for a second, was the moment they turned to face it. Their faces weren't blurred. They were blank. No eyes, no mouth. Just smooth, pale skin. Like plastic. Then the camera glitched out. Only came back when the flashing lights arrived.